Next Chapter Podcasts is proud to present the Play On podcast series, A Midsummer Night's Dream. A new modern English verse translation by Jeff Whitty.
That will ask for some tears in the true performing of it.
Hear Shakespeare's comic masterpiece about lovers,
For love looks not with eyes, but with the mind.
royals,
Regard your father as a god.
players,
My chief talent is for a tyrant.
and fairies whose worlds are all turned upside down and right side up by powers beyond their control. Go to playonpodcast.com to learn more.
Don't make me play a woman. I've a beard. Growing?
Hello, my name is Miriam Laube, and I'm the senior producer of the Play On podcast series. Today, it is my great pleasure to have the chance to talk with the playwright who translated Midsummer Night's Dream into modern English verse for Play On Shakespeare, the incomparable, the beautiful, the incredibly talented Mr. Jeff Whitty. Jeff is a Tony Award-winning writer whose plays and musicals include Avenue Q, Bring It On, Tales of the City, The Further Adventures of Hedda Gabler, and Head Over Heels, which we worked on together at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Jeff also wrote the screenplay for the film Can You Ever Forgive Me, which was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay and won the award for Adapted Screenplay from the Writers Guild of America and the Independent Spirit Awards. I am so honored to have with me now my dear friend and colleague and my sometimes muse, Jeff Whitty.
Oh, Miriam, what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. And you are my muse, as you know. There's months of iambic pentameter that we worked on together.
Yes. Months between us, months of iambic. But listen, Jeff, I want to ask you a quick first question. So, what was the first piece of art you remember that affected you as a child? It can be a play, a piece of music, a movie, painting.
Gosh, that's a really good question. I mean, I would say like the Brady Bunch, or
Yeah.
I've got to say, I mean, there was lots that affected me, but the one that I really draw from a lot was in 1982. I was 11, and I remember I went to go see E.T. And I knew nothing about it. My mom and dad had seen it out of town when they were out of town, and they were like, "Oh, we can't wait to show you this." And I remember coming out of it feeling this incredibly warm glow, like in my heart center. And it was the first time, because I still think it's such a brilliant movie, and it holds up amazingly well. It's still really funny, but it was this feeling of coming out of it, like the show was still going on when I left the theater. And it was the first time I'd experienced that, and I've experienced it, like, since several times, but this was the first time, and that has always been my my goal ever since, was to leave the audience with that warm glow in their heart. It's something that I studied even. What are the pieces? What are the components of it that in E.T. and in other things that have left me with that, and it's such a rare, wonderful feeling that that there's a science to it.
Yeah, I love
think.
this. So I want to ask you about the science, because that's, first of all, I love the description of the warm glow. Like, I want to leave people with a warm glow. So what is the science of leaving people with that? What are the components?
It's authenticity is what I would say, and authenticity is something. I mean, the truth of authenticity, I've discovered, is that everything is authentic. It's just some of it is unbelievably disappointingly so. So, but there's when something is authentic, I say there are certain kinds of authenticity are closer to God than others. That the ones that are close to God are where they have a very strong point of view, and in any entertainment medium, That point of view has to be a single point of view that a lot of people are carrying off. And it has to really, really bring you from the highest joys to the lowest depths of despair. Which Angels in America does is another example.
Yes.
E.T.
Yes.
And that there's a real sense of care and consideration and love of the audience's experience, which is it's something that incredibly is kind of the last thing considered in a lot of times, is what is the audience's experience, so it's that tricky thing of balancing self-expression with attending to the audience.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah. So self-expression alongside attending to the audience, and that self-expression includes the everything from joy to grief.
Yeah, it's like a full 360. You take people on a full 360 in a way.
Interesting. And so you mentioned Angels in America did that for you. So E.T. was the first, Angels in America. Are there others for you that have done that in more recent times?
Showgirls. No, actually, Showgirls gets into camp, which is where you're enjoying the lack of attention to the audience experience. You know what I mean?
So much, yeah.
So much, but it doesn't really leave you with the warm glow so much. I'll say, oh God, another one was Cheek by Jowl.
Oh, yes.
The London Theatre Company did an As You Like It that was uncut. Like they didn't cut anything. And it was, in a weird way, a great... it was something I thought a lot about while writing the Midsummer. What they managed to do was make all of the jokes land. Yeah. And in this incredible depth of feeling that I'd never seen in As You Like It before. And that was another one. I just left the theater absolutely blown away. And then there's even like experimental theater, like Reza Abdo did a show called Quotations from a Ruined City back in New York that was in like a Chelsea loft, this gigantic loft. And it was very much about sort of a post-apocalyptic world, but it was so incredibly imaginative, so wonderful. I saw it 3 times because it kept giving me that feeling. And then to take it to even another medium, Joey Arias, who is a brilliant non-binary performer, he would do these sets singing as Billie Holiday down in the Village that people would go crazy for. He did a show with Basil Twist, the puppeteer, called Arias with a Twist, that was absolutely maybe the most delightful thing I've ever seen in a theater. They are 2 brilliant performers, and it was on this tiny, tiny little stage. It was pure imagination, and it just, it really, really... That's another one I saw, I think, 5 times.
That stayed
even when
with
it came
you.
to LA. Yes.
And kept that warm glow. Okay, so let me ask you about your journey to writing, because you went to New York to become an actor. Yes, you went to get an MFA.
Yes, no, I went to New York, on a Green Tortoise bus in 1993. The Green Tortoise being like this hippie bus that folds into a bed at night. This, all these beds it's something I could never do now crossing over to 50. But when I was 21, it was great. And I'd never been to New York. I just knew I wanted to tell stories somehow, and I sort of, because I knew I was a writer. But
you did. When did you know you were a writer?
I was reading when I was 4 years old. I was reading Nancy Drew books. I was incredibly precocious. My mom would take me to the library, and one time the librarian said, "Well, he can't be reading this," and I was, buried. My head was not even over the counter, but I loved to read so much, and I guess I knew I was a writer in 5th grade. I wrote a play called my first play, Miriam.
Yes,
little
please.
known in my canon. It was called The Cow That Smiled, and it was a murder. It was a murder mystery. And part of the mystery was that there was never a cow in the show that smiled. So I was off to a great start.
That's fantastic. I love it. That's the mystery. Where is the cow? But Jeff,
Yes,
so
I was
what-
a subversive little shit in 5th grade.
Well, I love that. That subversiveness, that subversive humor is such a part of your oeuvre. But that being said, Jeff, it's true. So you wrote that play, and then were you like, oh my gosh, this is it? I'm gonna write plays. Because it could have been a book, right? You could have been writing novels. But what was it about writing for the theater? Like, did you know that was actually, you wanted to tell stories and you wanted people to watch them? Was that why the theater?
Because when I was like 13 in 1984, I auditioned for a production of Winnie the Pooh at the local theater, and these great people had come in from USC, and they sort of wanted to start in Ashland there. And these two sisters, Kitsan and Lori Means, were my Auntie Mames. They were, and they actually knew what they were talking about, and they were ruthless. So I auditioned for Winnie the Pooh. Of course, I wanted the titular role, and then I got cast as Eeyore, and I it's so funny because I'm still in contact with Kitsan. Lori passed on, but Kitsan, the younger sister, I remember she told me I got Eeyore, and I was very, very polite and professional on the phone, and then burst into tears because I wasn't Winnie the Pooh. But then I learned the truth of theater, which is Winnie the Pooh sucks. It's a shitty part. Eeyore gets all of the laughs, And what they did was they enforced in me a very rigorous performance style because they hated showboating, and anything that we consider community theater, or that's generally considered community theater, they would just rail at me and anyone else who was being a little like hot shit diva out there, and not telling a story for the audience. And so really very early on, I mean, Lori smoked, and she would be like, they would both be sobbing, and they're Italian sisters, these very emotional women, and I was this Norwegian kid, and I just had never experienced this kind of theater people, that thing. And so Lori smoked, and they both, her mascara would be running. They're crying. They're so angry at me and disappointed. Lori poking her cigarette in my face, her Eve cigarette, and they were wonderful. They were just what I needed, and everything I learned at that little theater in Coos Bay, Oregon, is a message I want to take to Broadway, which is attend to the audience. And that's the so I was really, really blessed. So it was theater, and I just loved it. And I loved sweeping the stage as much as being on stage. So anyway.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So attending to the audience, meaning don't tell the story for yourself. Tell the story that the playwright has put on the page, so that story can live in the hearts, in a warm glow in the audience's hearts. Is that sort of what you're saying? That authenticity.
Yes, that authenticity, and that's that it is like I said before, it is that balance of self-expression and attending to your audience, and that is, I think, the sort of you're like walking on a knife, with audience and yourself on both sides, and it is that thing that gives a show authenticity. You are the host of a party, and everything, you are the Four Seasons Hotel. Where I think the New York Commercial Theater can often be the Four Seasons Total Landscaping. We want the Four Seasons Hotel where you are, everything is effortless. You don't think about the fact, or a nice dinner at a great restaurant. You're not thinking about the service. You're just thinking about this wonderful, wonderful experience. Your whole thing is you have to make yourself vanish. It's a huge, very humble task, and it's so appreciated when I see something where they have really, they're showing me a great time.
That's a beautiful way to say it. In some ways, it's the sublimation of an ego, right? Like it's the vanishing of your own self to tell the story, that the story comes through you in some way.
That it comes through you, and the key is you've got to put yourself in the audience's seat, so you are included in that audience when you're writing, and everything's an educated guess, of course, but if it's the thing about taste, and it's what I always say about taste, which is that taste is consideration of the audience. It is consideration of the guest at your dinner. It's a consideration of, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You're seeing it through other eyes than yours.
Yes.
But that you're, like you said, it requires a sublimation of the ego, and I think some people can have trouble with that. And if their self-expression happens to align with the audience experience, great. But it never does. If they're purely expressing themselves, and it's why I said, and I haven't said it aloud. I thought it to myself, but sometimes you see things and you're like, well, that was, I can see where you're at or whatever, but you don't really have a good time. And my thing is, I want to make money. It's all about greed, purely. I want something that's a hit so I can make a living, and it's the wonderful, wonderful challenge of any artist's career. Really is to put bread on your table, you have to submit to the audience, serve them.
Serving the audience, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
and it
so
also tickles me to no end. I love making audiences feel and laugh and all that, taking them on a total trip. So
That I know. Let's talk about how you got involved with Play On. Or before we do that, what was the first Shakespeare's play you ever saw, Jeff?
God. Oh, it was. I mean, this is true. This was on. Because we worked together on Head Over Heels at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in 2015, and I have to clarify that was quite different than the Broadway version that I didn't see until 5 months after the opening. But it was on that very stage, Miriam. It was Macbeth. When I was in high school, I went to Ashland and saw Macbeth.
Wow! And that was your first Shakespeare. And what do you remember from that first Shakespeare experience?
I remember I loved things like The Trap, where, that wonderful way of moving scenery up and down, and I wrote very specifically for that trap in Head Over Heels. And being outside, it's that wonderful thing, and I love that theater so much because it's so similar to attending a football game at Autzen Stadium, where the roar of the crowd, that outdoor crackle of and that inspired me to write Head Over Heels, to structure it as a sporting event. Yes. Where, with the flags that dropped and the very clear semaphore, because I try to consciously write for the alphas in the audience as well as the betas. And the alphas tend to like those clear things of who's on top and who's winning. So that was the fun of that. But yeah, it was Macbeth, and I it was really, really fun. The ghosts at dinner and all of I remember so much of it really clearly, even now, 34 years on. So.
I love it. The ghosts at dinner. Yes, that scene.
Yes.
So when Louie asked you about, Louie Douthit, who is the creator of the Play On projects, when she asked you to, would you be willing to translate a Shakespeare into modern verse, what did you think? And were you like, yes, this is something I want to do? Or were you like, oh, I'm not so sure?
I mean, I put myself first, just sort of, this is how I always take on anything, was like, if I heard about this, would I go?
Right.
And then it was because that's always the thing. And I was like, I don't know. But then I like the show that sounds like an awful idea, but in execution is not. Which is what I learned from Avenue Q, for example, where puppets and everyone has dread of puppets. And it was the fun of it because people go in with a resistance and you just break it down and you show them the wonder and fun of it. Head Over Heels, a jukebox musical with the Go-Go set in Elizabethan times. It was deliberately designed to sound implausible because I had a hunch that I could make it work. And so this one too, it was like, this is so dangerous and subversive. But then I thought, like when I have acted Shakespeare and when I've seen it, it requires a lot of mugging. And by mugging, I mean you as an actor have to step outside of what is there to communicate an idea. There's showboating kind of mugging, but there's also the mugging that is extra acting. And the reason for this is because we don't get the references.
Yes.
We don't get this word, a stepdom to a dowager. What does that mean in the opening lines? It's the first joke. So it's, and so I thought, I got it. Because I thought about it for a while after Louis brought it up. And I said, yes, of course. And then I was like, do I really want to do this? But then it was like, you know what? This is going to give audiences Shakespeare's ideas. Even though they'll have different language, I'll try to make the language as beautiful and effortless and flowing as possible. But they're now going to get all of the ideas, which you don't always get. Because you can't have it both. You either have his poetry and the beauty of his language, or you have his ideas. And unfortunately, we can't go back to 1600. And so I thought this is a worthy project. And so, yeah, that's how it started. And Louis had me into her office, and I was one of the later playwrights. Perhaps, I couldn't believe it. I went in, and she had all of these cards on the wall or post-it notes or something with the plays, and there was like a handful left. They were all plays I'd never heard of. Really, I'd heard the titles. I'd never, and, those the history ones, or whatever. And then there's Midsummer Night's Dream, and I was like, how in God's green earth is this available? Yeah. And I was like, well, I'll take that one, of course. And then it turned out, because I was also like, how is this? What's going on here? And Louis said something about that others didn't want to tackle it because it's such a a beloved chestnut. And fortunately for me, I didn't know Midsummer very well at all. I'd read it in college. I'd seen one production, Mark Rucker's production at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and that was the only time I'd ever seen it. I've seen As You Like It 5 or 6 times. But I know a lot of the plays inside out. I didn't know Midsummer that well.
Wow.
So it was also it was wonderful to discover the play in the course of adapting it. Yeah. And I think it also helped because I didn't have any real preconceived notions.
Yeah, that's for sure, right? Because you can just come to it fresh. But what did you love about translating it?
The play has a lot of affection in my heart because I was really going through hell during the period of writing it, which was 2016, 17, 18. I'm still doing revisions on it, but it's that was the bulk of the writing was 4 or 5 months, on and off. But it was my only friend at the time. Oh, and, I'm not trying to. Your friend. Shakespeare became my friend, and so it became a wonderfully grim pleasure to write it. And it was it really. I have such affection for this piece because it really was. It was kind of my only saving anything at the time.
Solace. So, it became your solace. Your solace.
Yes, absolutely. And it was great. It was challenging. I remember I would turn a page and see solid rhyming iambic pentameter couplets just going on and on and on. And it was like, you'd feel like, oh, I just got over that mountain, and oh my God. Because the couplets were the killer. But I also, I love them. I think about iambic pentameter all the time. In the shower, on the treadmill, I'm always sort of considering it and going through it in my head and being like, oh, wait, that's a better, so when people see me on the treadmill at the gym, they may be thinking that I'm watching The Real Housewives on the adjacent TV, but no, Miriam, I'm an artist. I'm a serious artist. Yes.
That's so funny. I love that. I know that you have, I think you have a gift for iambic pentameter, which, do you want to explain for our audiences what in fact that is?
Iambic pentameter, it's the simplest thing that people think is very, perhaps, complicated. And I think when you look at, a block of Shakespeare text, it's like ugly on the page almost. It's like this clot of words. Because it's not designed to be read, it's designed to be spoken. So iambic pentameter is very simple. It's in the name itself. So I'm going to break it down and then make it very simple. But I'll break it down first. An iamb is simply an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. Ta-da! It's like that. You do 5 of them in a row, and that is one of the 2 lines that are allowed of iambic pentameter. So, if music be the food of love, play on. And then there's an optional 11th syllable that you can add at the end of the line. So here's another one you may have heard of from this young upstart playwright. To be or not to be, that is the question. And that is 11 syllables. And that is all it is. And the 11th syllable has to be, it can't be like a single syllable word by itself. It has to be connected to the 10th, whatever the 10th syllable is. So, and that is really, really as easy as it is. And I love it. Here's what a geek I am. I was thinking about this a lot last night. In that very line, to be or not to be, that is the question. I actually was on YouTube watching all these different versions of the speech because I got obsessed with the fact that almost every single person in every verse I could find would go like this. They would go, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind, and it's not that at all, because I never, ever, ever write to break the meter. Ever. You never, ever do that. And what I'm saying is, instead of that is the question, it's that is the question. And that is not iambic pentameter. You're stepping off of it. But if you actually follow the iambic pentameter, and what happens is the line dies at the end. So it goes, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler. And then when you say whether 'tis nobler, you have to really sort of restart your idea. But listen to it this way. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind. Do you see how I lifted is?
Yes.
So it's, and that gives it a propulsive forward energy that lets you sail into the next line. I was talking to Joan Washington, the genius speech and voice and text and dialect goddess of London. London theater and film and all kinds of things. She just passed away last week, but I was able to talk with her some during awards season because her husband is Richard E. Grant, who is in the movie.
Oh yes, of course.
And she was very emphatic with me. She's the best. She's the funniest person I've ever met, but very emphatic with me that the 11th syllable is a skip step into the next line, and you can't do that. You can't do that skip step if you're going, that is the question. This is so geeky and nerdy and it's the mechanics. It's the mechanics of it. Always follow the meter. If you're going, what? Oh, I'm going to do a little adjustment here. Screw you. Man up or woman up or non-binary up and get to work. Do the work,
And follow the meter. Yes.
Because it's a gorgeous... And people think it's some kind of affectation or that, perhaps the Queen demanded that they must write in this fussy way. And it's like, No, it's down and dirty and wonderfully grounded and earthy, and it is the human heartbeat itself. It is how the human heartbeat works. It's and Head Over Heels is all about this as well. And Head Over Heels was about balancing two opposites. So instead of being in a binary existence, you're trying to balance both. Every character in the show has to come to a balance at the end. I gave all of them, it's like a little game almost. They all have to figure out to balance these two unlike things, and that is how they find happiness at the end. And so it's in a way, the human heartbeat is just that. It's release, clench, release, clench. And this rhythm, our ear gets hypnotized by it. So that the language is, if something is in all perfect 10-syllable lines, the audience can get almost hypnotized because become so accustomed to the rhythm of the language, which just flows out so beautifully because it's how our ears are designed to hear. But you don't want them completely hypnotized, which is why the 11th syllable is wonderful, because it makes the ear, because you're only really conscious of what is a deviation, and this is an allowed deviation. So the 11th syllable is like a little, wait, what? Huh? Like, what was that?
Yes. Yeah.
And as Joan argued, the rhythm is the same. It's just a little bit of a finesse on the drums, say, to have the two unstressed syllables in a row. So anyway, that is my geeky perspective.
I love that. I love that you were watching To Be or Not to Be in different versions and thinking about them. I love that. I'm the same way. I could watch Shakespeare videos forever. Okay, do you have a favorite scene in Midsummer or a favorite character?
Oh gosh. I just love Titania. I love her. I love what wakes me from my flowery bed. Like, that whole speech is so great. It's so wonderful to see, because so much of drama is about status.
Yeah.
To see this character carrying on as if she is, not behaving in a foolish manner. It's just wonderful. I loved writing Titania.
Oberon, very skip away, for I forbid his bed and company.
You rash wanton! Am I not your lord?
If so, I'd be your lady, but I know. When you have sneaked away from fairyland, and in a shepherd's shape then sat all day, you play on cornpipes and write verses to a love-struck shepherdess. Why are you here? Come from the farthest mount of India? Perhaps because the bouncing Amazon, your leathery mistress and your warrior love, to Theseus must be wedded, and you come to give their bed joy and prosperity.
But I really, really love all of the characters, and I love the incredibly modern-seeming humor of when they're watching the play together, that meta thing, which is so great. It's so funny. It's just great. And Bottom, too. I loved writing for Bottom, or anything about or around Bottom.
Can we talk a little bit about your beautiful friend Jen Harris, who played Bottom for us in the podcast? Have you heard her incredible Bottom? I just love her.
Oh, it's great. She's really, really great. I loved the way in the podcast the sound design, the way that they used the donkey sounds, the real one, because those were real ones mixed with her effortlessly. I thought it was fabulous. I was gagging, and it was wonderful. And then Jen Harris has been in my the acting ensemble in my head. What do you call it? The repertory company in my head. She's been there since my first play that I did in New York City, and it was 2003, and it's the play that got me Avenue Q. It was called The Plank Project. There was a parody of the Laramie Project, but I made up my own tragedy. It was more of a send-up of the style of theater, of these self-important actors going to a small town and then performing. And Jen came in and auditioned, and it was one of those. Everyone in that cast was the funniest actor, but she just came in and just walked off with the role of what was her name? Katrina, who was she was a dancer for American Ballet Theater until her knees fell off, and then she turned to acting. And she's very, very imperious and dominating. But yes, so I just have loved Jen. We did with Lisa Jolly and Saida Akalona. We did this parody of the "Leave Britney Alone" video from 1997 or 2007 rather.
Oh, wow. Okay,
yes.
I'm gonna look that up. I have to look that up. I have to go look that up and watch it.
Because I knew Jen would kill it. I knew, like, her death scene is so funny in the podcast.
Yes.
It's so great.
Yes.
Yeah.
I should mention
But all the actors were terrific.
Before we get too far away from it, Arjun Sheth, who was the sound designer along with Patrick Burgess, we did, Catherine Eaton, the director, we did spend a good half an hour trying to figure out how to combine Jen's donkey sounds with a real donkey sound. I wish you could have been in the room, Jeff.
Oh my God!
We spent a half an hour just going over how can we make that work? How do we put those together?
That is the work. That is what I'm talking about. Because as an audience member, because I get to be the audience finally, and
Right.
I just loved it. I was cackling at how ingeniously you guys did it. It was really, really cool. It was really great. In fact, I was even thinking, like, God, if this was done on stage, is there a way to have the sound design so that those things are accessible, so it can blend, so that the actor can mouth the donkey sounds and then be speaking theirs? It's a really great concept. I just loved it.
I will pass that along to the sound designers who work so hard.
Oh, they did such a great job. It's so immersive. The podcast. I just, I'm also a video gamer, and I love to get involved in these, long epics. I like the one. I don't like to play with others. I just want to play. But these long epic things. And, when you go out, the sound design in those games is brilliant, because they're worlds.
Right.
It's storytelling in this new level. And it reminded me so much, in all the good ways, of being in a really great video game. That
yes.
It was that immersive, that well considered, a good video game. So that's it's a high compliment from me as an avid
I love
gamer.
that. I love that. Being inside the world in some ways. You get to be inside the world. Inside
And the audience,
Shakespeare's world.
and the key to storytelling is also giving the audience a lot of room to imagine. You don't give them everything. You let them imagine some, because it's what they want to do. They want to come and exercise their imaginations. And a podcast is wonderful for that. I saw what the characters looked like. I saw the sets. And it was all in my imagination, and it's the gift of good storytelling.
Yes, I love that. While we're on the subject of sound, can we talk about your brother, George Whitty, who did the music compositions for this?
Oh my God, he did. I mean, he just hit it out of the park. And I love, it was everything that George, the African rhythms that were so fantastic. And that ending sequence brought tears to my eyes. That gorgeous song.
I love that song.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And the way it goes into the speech at the end, all of it is breathtakingly good. I was so happy. And again, it's what I love about my job, is that there's always the point that I'm so happy to give it over to others and see what they do with it, especially when you're working with great people, because it's so much fun. I never would ever would have considered that ending, that with that song and everything. And so it was this wonderful gift.
Yes.
The whole thing was, I cackled all the way through, so.
Oh, good. I have to say, just a huge shout out to your brother. He was such a joy to work with. And that song, "Each and Every Bedroom Blessed Through This Palace," it's so good. And when
It's so good, yes.
It just, like you said, that warm feeling in your heart, that song stayed with me like that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you and George ever worked together before?
Oh gosh. We've always wanted to, and I mean, we've just done like little things, like our sister Lucy, who works in PR in Sacramento, did a holiday card that she wanted George and I to do, and we did this audio thing that was really funny because George is hilariously funny. He's one of the funniest people I know. So we put together this thing for her. But no, we've always wanted to work together, and I think we're going to be doing this thing in my hometown of Coos Bay, Oregon, in this gorgeous vaudeville era movie theater that has been restored, the Egyptian Theater. If you put that theater on Broadway, it would be one of the gems of Broadway.
Yes.
Huge house, it's like 700 in the house. Beautiful theater that goes kind of. They don't have they program movies there, and occasional. But they don't. What I want to do is we want to do a musical that's called Coos Bay the Musical. That's marketed like a tourist trap, like the Trees of Mystery, the Enchanted Forest.
Yeah, right.
Coos Bay the Musical, and it would be a vaudeville, so the acts would rotate in and out. But the one solid thing that would be there every time is the musicalized story of the exploding whale in Florence. And to anyone listening, hit pause on this and go to YouTube and look up Exploding Whale Oregon and watch the original movie clip of the time that a whale washed up in the beach in the 60s, and they didn't know how to get rid of it. And it's this huge whale stinking out there, so they decided to blow it up with dynamite.
Oh no!
You haven't seen it, Miriam? It's the funniest. Oh, it's the best thing on the internet. And the reporter is so funny. He has such a great take on it. So they blow this whale up thinking it'll all blow out to sea, but instead it blows in a full 360. And so these people are a quarter mile away as they're filming. God. And there's the whale, and then suddenly there's this like just pink cloud, and you hear a half second later you hear the explosion because it's so far away, and everyone's laughing, and then they suddenly start to scream and run because giant pieces of whale and little pieces of whale or just rotting whale are falling on everybody. There's a piece that takes out a car, and the reporter is so dry, and he says, the whale blasted blubber beyond all believable bounds. And as in all of my iambic pentametering, I could never come up with such a great alliterative line.
Oh my God.
So anyway, this will be the centerpiece every time, and this is what we'll advertise: is come see the story of the exploding whale in Florence. So, and just so you can cut all of this if you wish, but it'll start off under the sea with like a Disney style. I'll get like Rick Lyon, hopefully, or a great puppet artist. So it'll be all blacklight puppetry under the sea as the whale is singing about how he wants to go up above. He wants to live a life up above, in the air, and then he finally gets up there on the sea, and then the sea just recedes, and then the lights go to black, and then we start a musicalized version of the news report, and
God.
And this is in Florence, Oregon. So I have a lyric already that's the blubber flew in torrents because that's how they do in Florence.
Oh God! Yeah. Oh my God!
And then when the whale explodes, we'll turn out all the lights and throw like wet sponges on the audience or something to make them scream. So don't you want your ticket right now? I'm sure.
Well,
but I think it could be great for the. Go ahead.
I think anything that you and your brother make together, I would give the chance to come and see. I feel a little sad. Something about that whale it just doesn't sit right in me. It doesn't give me the glow, Jeff. It doesn't give me the glow.
This is deliberately stealing the glow of the audience because we want to get them really emotionally invested in the whale. And then he washes up, and then the sea we'll do sort of like that Japanese thing they like. Where they have the big streamer across the stage that's going down, and then the whale is dead.
Oh god.
It's like you know how in Psycho the way they kill off Janet Leigh early in the movie and everyone's surprised.
Yes.
This is the equivalent.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna leave the whale, but I do want to come see anything you and your brother do together. I am gonna come see. But that being said, can I ask you, if you were going to translate another one of Shakespeare's plays, moving from the whale, if you were going to translate any other one of these, what would it be? Like, what are your favorites? And which ones have you been in, Jeff? I know as an actor, have you ever done any of these?
Yes, I did Twelfth Night, where I was Feste, which was maybe the favorite thing I've ever played. I would love to adapt Twelfth Night. I mean, it's such a beautiful play, and Feste is such a great character. You know, I had a thing where he was like the on clown or the backstage clown. Like when he was on, he was one thing,
Yes.
and when he was backstage hanging out, he was another. And when I say backstage, he's like he wasn't having to perform and do his clowny things. And you know, I find sometimes the clown's a little annoying in Shakespeare, largely because the language, we just don't
so
understand
hard.
the jokes,
Yeah.
you know, and so it's, but somehow Feste almost works throughout, like almost the whole thing still, you know, our audience ears, and, you know, we can understand everything he says. So I played Feste. I played Edgar in King Lear.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Oh God, I would love to adapt King Lear too. I love the women in that play.
Yeah.
I love a female villain.
Yes.
There's so much fun to write, and you know, I got my you know, as I've been talking about nonstop on Facebook, I did get my AARP membership, so I feel qualified to write Lear now. Once I get the AAA discount or whatever the hell you get at the AARP,
Then you can write Lear.
yes, then I can finally write Lear.
Translate Lear, yes. That's fantastic. So I would just want to ask a little bit before we sort of start to wrap things up. If you were going to describe your own writing process, how would you describe it?
You know, for example, I just got a green light on a big movie project that's sort of like every gay kid's fantasy to do this, and I can't believe it. I have done the outline, a very detailed outline of the structure, but have not written a word really. I've written a couple scenes that just came into my head, but what I'm doing right now is I am imagining it. I'm feeling through it emotionally, trying to put myself on the outside, thinking, how can I make this appeal to as broad a market as possible? You know, and what I learned is that when you're writing for a broad market, the mistake they make so much on Broadway is that they dumb it down, but then you're losing people that want richness and texture in their art. The key is to go richer, so that but make sure that it plays to the good time crowd first. That is your first thing, is that if people just want to have a good time, you know, they will. But if it's, you know, the Yale classical studies professor, she will also find things, you know. So I try to consider how to tell the story to have a broad appeal, you know, and I have so many funny moments that are just sitting in the cupboard in my brain that I will drag out when I'm writing. So I consider it a lot before I write. And then when I write, it comes out incredibly fast in a rush. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Incredibly fast. I waited on head over heels. I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And I wrote the first draft in 36 hours straight.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So do you write the structure down? So you'll write structure down and then you'll think, and then you start to actually write the play itself.
Yeah, like the structure is the trunk of the tree. The structure it's that invisible thing that people would do, you know, people in the commercial theater would do, and nonprofit, any storytelling medium really. It's the thing that people don't consider, because when a structure is good, it's effortless. So you're never going, oh wait, that didn't land, or what's going on, or a good structure sails forward. So it's the structure comes first, and then it's the trunk of the tree, and then you're putting all the ornaments on it with the words and the humor, the pathos, all of that. So a good solid structure is where I always start, and that's something I can do in my head because as I said, I'm thinking about it all the time.
That's so interesting. And
But Midsummer was not a fast rush out. The structure was there. So the challenge of Midsummer was the translation,
And so when, in the difference between something that's coming just from you and doing the translation you had the structure, now you were trying to, what was the hardest part of doing that translation?
Oh, it was, as I said before, it was those rhyming couplets.
Oh, right.
Endless pages, but I loved it. And it was, again, like I said, there's always a little program running in my head. So I would be thinking about those rhyming couplets all the time. There'd be one that would go clang, and I'd be like, doing whatever, walk into the hardware store, getting coffee, thinking, wait a minute, there's a better way to put that. It's what I love. I mean, as I said, I don't have a lover or a pet or a child or a spouse, but I have my work, and that is my company. It's what I love it,
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm not trying to say that it's sad or anything. Who knows? I may have a hot lover in a year, but right now it's
Yes.
it's wonderful company.
Well, what I love, what makes sense to me is that you are someone who's invested in words, and you love the words and the taste of words and the sound of them, and that they sort of live. When you were describing walking to the hardware store, it's like they live with you, they walk with you, the words and the characters. Yeah. Can you tell me, just because humor is such a big part of who you are and your writing, what's the difference between something that's witty and something that's silly?
Okay, this is the difference between clever and funny. I have a whole this rule of comedy that I had early on in my career. I discovered and again, Miriam, it's that thing of where I was talking about balancing opposites. This is comedy itself, because we laugh when we hear two unlike ideas that suddenly are bridged in our brain. That releases a very specific physical response that is that clenching and relaxing of the diaphragm that we know as laughter. And then later in life, I realized, tragedy is the reverse of this. It is when what is whole becomes divided. But what's wonderful is that our body has almost exactly the same physical response, because a sob and a laugh are so similar. In my forever to be unseen, well, hopefully not, but for now unseen revision of Head Over Heels, I explicate this very clearly about laughter and tears, how similar they are, what a similar release. And, I think comedy is a wonderful way, as I say, to shake the bark off of people. And that, because, pretty much everything I do has that moment where I suddenly go, surprise, and I go for the heart.
Yes.
And so laughter is the best way to get audiences ready for that, because it's just the best feeling ever to laugh. It's such a great feeling. It's better than sex. If I had to choose a life of great sex or hard laughs, give me hard laughs. Absolutely.
Yes, I love that. And it's true. There's something, the way you described a sob and a laugh, it's so true. The reaction.
Isn't it interesting?
It is, and it's also, as you described, the surprise, both ways, elicits that response, that their surprise is part of it.
Surprise is everything. Surprise is the key to storytelling. And that is the difference between silly or I hate wacky. I just can't bear to watch wacky, because it's never funny, because there's not surprise in wacky. But there has to be surprise in comedy, and the setting up of those delicious surprises is so much fun. Again, it's like planning a party. It's that excitement you feel of like, oh, I love to throw parties, and so comedy is its own way of celebrating.
I love that, throwing a comedy party. Jeff, I want to finish, but I just also want to ask you, just because we are in the midst of or coming out of this kind of strange pandemic time, how has the pandemic affected you and your process? And yeah,
the slowdown in the industry has affected me. Like this movie project I'm talking about, I've been on for over a year. But we only started to pitch it now because, people were being incredibly cautious before. And I have a TV project as well that's finally starting to get traction. So that was tough about the pandemic. But as far as being stuck inside, I was coming out of this massive depression at the beginning, and I was like the groundhog popping my head out like, hey, everybody, I'm back. And then like, oh my God, I continue to be locked in this apartment. But it was like, oh, Jeff, you've got this. You know exactly. You're wonderful at being a recluse. So that aspect wasn't so bad. And honestly, for me, it was kind of great. It was really helpful. Because I was able to pull my shit together in a way that I'm not sure I could have had I had the same freedoms. So, but now, I mean, it's just so maddening. God damn. I mean, I didn't realize how obstinate people can be about, vaccines and all. So that's been that's frustrating everybody right now because we could be over it by now. But,
yeah. I love, I'm going back. Well, first of all, the whole idea of having time in this pandemic times. A friend of both yours and mine, Billy Porter, said it actually gave him time to think through some things, right? You're going, and actually the slowdown allows you to process grief and trauma in a way and come through it. And it sounds like some of that happened for you personally, and also with your art. You actually channeled some of your art in and through the pandemic.
And then also, I think for a lot of us, what people were going through, people in my life, those who, some of them died, and it also gave me perspective, like, I wouldn't trade my life, you know what I mean? Like, for people have it way, 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 way worse than I do. I have a friend who was homeless for a year. It was just a sort of series of misfortunes that brought him there, and it wasn't drugs or anything. But his stories are heartbreaking. Really, really. It just made me go, okay, things might be shitty for you, but they're way, way, way shittier for others. So
in a way, appreciating life.
Yeah.
Appreciating life and stepping back into it in a way.
Yes, by cautious degrees. And it was a trip.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's still going, but I mean, God.
Yes. I just want to get back to one last thing. We're going to go backwards a little bit here, where we were talking about clever and funny. What is it about Midsummer that Shakespeare did that was that set us up for that great surprise? What parts of it?
It's the fun of, because another key to storytelling is status. I'm rigorous about status. And it's, because the fun of status, we love status, with Game of Thrones to Dynasty to Midsummer. It's one of the great, people just love it when people's status keeps getting upended, where the shunned lover is suddenly Helen of Troy. And, it's, or Titania, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
Behaving in this sort of pompous way when she's being an idiot. Like, it's so much fun for audiences. So I would say, I mean, there's so much that's funny in the play, but I would say the heart of the comedy is are these wonderful sudden status switches.
Where Bottom the Weaver is in gets to love the queen, and the queen is in love with an ass. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and suddenly he is elevated to, he's suddenly getting served, by all these magical creatures, and he resists it at first, and then just melts into it, and this becomes his lifestyle. It's so funny to me.
Okay, so as we sort of near the end of this, I'm just going to go through this silly little quick fire. So I'm going to ask you questions, and you have to answer the first thing that comes to your head, and there are like 10 of these. Okay.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Dog or cat?
Both. This is where I'm non-binary there, because I love dogs for their everything that we love about dogs, their dedication, whatever, and I love cats for their fussiness and I love like a cranky cat that they make me laugh so hard. But
are you a dog or a cat?
I'm also I would say that I'm non-binary. I would say
yes,
I'm more of a like golden retriever, but I have a little bit of what the hell are those Egyptian cats? I've got a little bit of that to me as well.
Yes, absolutely. All right, sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Coffee or tea?
I rarely see the sunrise. Oh, coffee. Here, I'm going to have a sip. Ready?
All right, yes. Yes,
I love my coffee.
German expressionism or French farce?
French farce, absolutely. Yes.
Live theater or film?
Well, I mean, in a perfect world, it would be live theater, but right now it's film.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Margarita or carrot juice?
Carrot juice, because I don't drink now, so.
Good for you.
Yes, although, you know what? If this is an imaginary hypothetical situation, a margarita, absolutely, hands down. But it's a lifestyle of carrot juice for me.
Yes, good. I like the carrot juice. Mountains or the sea?
The sea. I grew up on the ocean in Oregon,
you did.
so yes.
The cup is generally half.
God, that's a good one. That's tough. I would say I think my root nature is half full. Experience is trying to suggest that it's half empty, and I buy into that sometimes, but I would say my root Jeff nature is half full.
Yes, I totally agree with that. You are such a beam of sunshine when you walk into the room. Your proudest professional moment?
Head over heels, absolutely. Our original production that we did together, that opening night was the most happiest night of my life, because you know how hard we all worked.
Yeah.
And just everyone's work, top to bottom, everywhere, was so great. And I loved the collaboration, and that we were able to pull that off with one working preview before the show froze was amazing. Yeah. So that was my proudest moment. That I carry much more with me than any awards or trophies I've ever gotten. It's always just sort of fun and wacky. Actually, wacky I said is a bad thing. Goofy in a good way. Those awards things, but no, it's always my work generally. I think is my proudest moment.
That night was a magical night for, I think, everyone who was present in that audience, because you gave them that gift of the warmth, the heart glow. You certainly gave them that gift. Okay, last question. What piece of advice would you give to your 16-year-old self?
I would say on another level, my 16-year-old self would be that you are all you need. You are all you need. And this goes with being an actor, being a writer. Don't try to reach to be something you're not. Just really dig into who you are and what you know, and know that you mean well, because I think a lot of people have a problem believing that we don't always do well, but we mean well. So that's what I would tell my 16-year-old self. Just be true to yourself, because you you can't see yourself because you know, as with all of us, you are yourself. But trust that he's all right, you know. And you'll fuck up endlessly. Just do what you need to do to repair the damage, apologize, and move on, you know.
I love that. You are enough. Jeff, I have to say, you have given me the gift of some of my most favorite moments. Certainly that night, opening night of Head Over Heels, getting to speak your lines, getting to work on your translation of Midsummer. It's so beautiful.
Thank you, Miriam. And you are a godsend. You're like, I often describe you as the finest actress I've ever worked with. So just know, this audience, that she's, you were so brilliant. You were so patient. Remember that damn speech I wrote 10,000 times?
I loved it.
You were so great with it. You were just so wonderfully patient. And I appreciate it so much. So.
And just one last thing for our audiences. Jeff Whitty has this incredible way with words. I hope you will take the time to listen to this beautiful translation, directed by Catherine Eaton, produced by Michael Goodfriend, with sound design by Arjun Sheth and Patrick Burgess, and music composition by George Whitty, and an extraordinary cast. We are so thankful and so happy to have Jeff as part of the Next Chapter Play On company. Jeff, you live in my heart. Thank you.
You're right there in mine too, my dear. And may we work together again soon.
How now, spirit?
Next Chapter Podcast is proud to present the Play On podcast series, A Midsummer Night's Dream. A new modern English verse translation by Jeff Whitty.
That will ask for some tears in the true performing of it.
Hear Shakespeare's comic masterpiece about lovers,
For love looks not with eyes, but with the mind.
royals,
Regard your father as a god.
players,
My chief talent is for a tyrant.
and fairies whose worlds are all turned upside down and right side up by powers beyond their control. Go to playonpodcast.com to learn more.
Don't make me play a woman. I've a beard. Growing?
Next Chapter Podcasts is proud to present the Play On podcast series, Macbeth, in a new modern English verse translation by Magdalia Cruz.
Art thou but a dagger of the mind?
Hear Shakespeare like you've never heard before. Performed by award-winning actors in a production that breathes new life into a timeless tale.
Men are weak.
Go to playonpodcasts.com to learn more. Put on your headphones, and don't forget to wash your hands.
Leave all the rest to me.
Next Chapter Podcasts is proud to present the Play On podcast series, Pericles.
Young Prince of Tyre. These skulls belonged to princes like yourself.
They say give up before you're just like them.
In a new modern English verse translation by Alan McLaughlin.
My life's at stake.
Starting Friday, June 4th. Here's Shakespeare's timeless tale about a man who loses everything only to find what matters most. Subscribe, rate and review Play On Podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Go to playonpodcast.com to learn more.
I still need a pair of pants.
Well, we can get you some. We can make a pair out of my best shirt.
Next Chapter Podcast is proud to present the Play On podcast series, Coriolanus, in a new modern English verse translation by Sean San Jose. Hear Shakespeare's tragedy about the legendary Roman leader who fell prey to the people and politicians he swore to protect. Performed entirely by women and gender non-binary actors. Go to playonpodcast.com to learn more. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.